on this episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists.
This movement that's happening right now across the country is bigger than I think we all even totally realize. And so we have to find a way to reach the hygienist in a smaller office who's not working with other hygienists, who hasn't had that opportunity to collaborate. Those hygienists that are not coming to meetings like this and networking with other people, but they care about their profession, they care about their patients. There's a lot at play, and honestly, when we look at all of the main issues in dentistry, I look at workforce, reimbursement, and access to care. Really, I think are kind of the top three things. They're all intertwined one within the other, but are we asking the right questions to get to the solution? I don't think we have.
Expectations of hygienists have changed. We have come to realize the strengths we have and the strengths we bring to the practice, and realize that has not been recognized over the decades you just worked here.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast, episode number 497. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for being with us today. We have a special episode for you. It was one that was recorded at RDH Under One Roof this past weekend, and this one comes on the heels, yet again, more conversations around the scope of practice of the dental assistants being kind of expanded into the areas that it's just not even the hygiene areas. It's just expanded into areas without the proper training and education. This was a very hot topic at RDH Under One Roof. Everyone was talking about it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, because I think it's worth saying. I don't have any issue. In fact, Washington State has expanded function dental assistants, and the expanded functions for them are placing restorations. Their education is really good. They get very similar education in institutions that dental hygienists get, especially the ones that move to the state that have to take the refresher courses for restorative before they can get fully licensed. And so their education is really good. They know, and the education is very specific to their the procedures that they're going to be placing, and they even sit for board exams. So the issue isn't, and it never has been, about the title of the person doing the extra part of that scope of practice. It has always been about the education and training for said procedures. And I think that's kind of across the board. I know Katrina Sanders said similar things. I know lots of people have said similar things, where we just want people who are treating the patients to be fully qualified for those procedures. And so in this episode, I'm joined by members of the Dental Hygiene Advocates of Washington in Jennifer Frame, Christi Holbrook, and Colleen Gaylord. And we're talking about some of the issues that are being faced by dental hygienists kind of across the board, specifically in Washington State, but kind of across the board. They're seeing all of the different challenges that are happening and some of the bills that are being proposed, and what isn't being done about it. This isn't a new thing, as they talk about in the episode. This has been a long time coming in several states, and it has been successfully defeated, but we're getting closer and closer to losing those in several areas. And so not only has the time been long past where people need to, step up, but since they haven't, we need extra help. And so in this episode, they talk about the organization that they've started, and they talk about like how everyone can contribute. They are very aware, and I think we all are aware, that not everyone has the ability to be boots on the ground. And so we need someone that will be boots on the ground. And so if you can help support those people in any way, shape, or form that it might be, then I know this profession is going to be in good hands. So I hope when you listen to this episode, you'll kind of better see what it might look like for these types of advocacy groups and alliances where you live, and what that model might look like. That's it for me. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to our special guest today. And with that, on to the episode.
A tale of two hygienists.
Listeners, welcome to the interview portion of the podcast. We have some long time coming guests. I don't want to say I invited them about 6 months ago, but it felt like 6 months for me. And they're kind of nervous. Why are you so nervous?
I'm not nervous.
Oh, you love this.
No, not that I love it. I just am. I think maybe because I know you and I've had a lot of conversations in person with you. And
We're going to talk about one of them.
we didn't prep for this meeting, so
Yeah, which
I really
love.
don't. I could be more nervous maybe if I knew
You
what
should
we
be
were.
nervous. I have these guns locked and loaded for you.
Yeah.
Hunting for bear. Okay, here we go. All right, so Dental Hygiene Advocates of Washington.
Yep.
We got to talk about the origin story. We got to talk about, so right now, listeners, just in case you haven't been brought into the conversation or maybe you haven't seen the conversation online or anything like that, there is several movements going on to really push our profession forward in a variety of different ways. And you all were one of the first ones to really kind of start the organization process. And then as you kind of got out there a little bit, supported other alliances and organizations they started popping up kind of all over the U.S. as well. But let's talk about specifically Washington, the state that I love. I has my heart. I brag about it all the time on this podcast because it's so freaking amazing. What are you all trying to do for Washington, and why do we start this advocacy?
This is really a grassroots advocacy movement in Washington focused on really the mission of preserving dental hygiene licensure, the profession of dental hygiene, and really what's in the best interests of our patients to keep them safe and to preserve our quality care for them. So we all know each other from before and have a ton of advocacy experience. And so here we are trying to get our word out, get hygienists involved in participating, because change doesn't happen from just a handful. It happens from everybody.
We really felt like we needed a grassroots effort. So we really needed to reach out to a lot of hygienists who want to get involved, but at the same time don't want to get involved, if that makes sense. So this movement that's happening right now across the country is bigger than I think we all even totally realize. And so we have to find a way to reach the hygienist in a smaller office who's not working with other hygienists, who hasn't had that opportunity to collaborate. Those hygienists that are not coming to meetings like this and networking with other people, but they care about their profession, they care about their patients, and they just want to see, they don't want to see that kind of change. You know, like, we like change, but we don't like this kind of change.
Yeah. Tell me where you feel like where are the shots coming from? The things that are attacking our profession.
Oh, the oral preventive assistant is huge. We've had 5 bills in 5 years in Washington, one right after another, with no education written in the bill. The bill has been, one page? Maybe this year was 2 pages. It made it to 2 pages this year.
Wow.
So there's no outlined education in these bills. It would be determined by the Dental Commission after, if it passed, which is highly dangerous to not have that in the law.
Sure.
So the OPA has been a really big focus for us to make sure that not just the public is aware, that the hygienists are aware, that not all dentists are on board with this type of worker.
Honestly, I was going to ask that question because it feels very much like this is coming from dentists, but not one dentist that I know supports it.
100%.
Yeah, it seems like the association is definitely behind this effort with workforce, and it's hard because I don't feel like we've seen data. We have asked for data multiple times of show us, what numbers do you need? What are we looking for? Do we have a gold number when you say that there's a shortage of dental hygienists? We know how many licensed hygienists we have in Washington State. We know how many licensed dentists there are. We don't know how many of them are working. How many of them are dual licensed, like maybe you are, and live in another state. You're tri-licensed. You're like upper echelon.
Oregon and Florida.
I only have one. But
it's the best one to hold. I'm just going to say it is the best one to hold.
The gold standard license, especially Washington State. We are proud of our licensure. We really
should
are.
Be. We absolutely should be.
We are, and to uphold that. So, when we look at how many hygienists do we need, we can't project how many then more programs we need to have or what type of funding we need to ask the legislature for if we don't have a goal in mind. And we data and statistics are going to get us where we need to go. We need to have that support to prove, hey, this is where we're going. We can't just make up numbers or.
We were talking about objectivity, and I don't think that that's really going to prove their point, though, right? And even to the same thing when we're talking about workforce shortages, we might not be short in the majority of Washington, but if someone on the commission or someone in power on the association or whatever is in a place or several of them are in a place where all the hygienists have migrated out, to them, their reality is it's going to feel like this is what it is. And that's their truth.
Right.
Therefore, they're going to bring it forth to everybody else and say, this is what's happening, even though it's not really the data that's showing that.
Right.
That's proving that out.
And when we look at all of this, obviously rural communities are a struggle everywhere, right?
Sure.
People tend to gravitate toward the urban areas. And in rural communities, when a dentist must supervise a hygienist, how can you have a hygienist in a county that has one dentist serving an entire county? You're not going to have a lot of opportunity for hygienists to live there if there's not a lot of work opportunity either. So supervision becomes an issue there as well. And then what incentives are there for people to go into those communities or return to their community if they have maybe 2 options for work versus 30 options for work? So there's a lot at play. And honestly, when we look at all of the main issues in dentistry, I look at workforce, reimbursement, and access to care. Really, I think are kind of the top 3 things. They're all intertwined one within the other. But are we asking the right questions to get to the solution? I don't think we have. I don't know what those questions should be, but we haven't been able to come to solutions that are working for everybody. So we do need to support our practice owners and the fact that, our patients need care. The practice owners need to have employees. The employees need great places to work as well. So where do we start? Where do we ask those questions to start gaining real solutions that benefit the patient, the employee, and the practice owner?
We were at dinner last night, and one of your 3 was supposed to be like the what do they call it? I won't say it's the silver bullet, but the silver bullet, like it's the reimbursements. Once we fix reimbursements, they were positing that, hey, everything else, our relationship with our docs, everything else is going to go by the wayside. We're not going to have any of the problems that we have in dentistry. And I did an interview earlier today with a Canadian hygienist, and she was talking to me about how she was saying that the college, which is basically their governing body or whatever, sets the fees for every single thing. And all of the insurance companies have to, from what she was saying, have to pay those fees. Like it's just, this is what it is. This is the reimbursement. If you have this disease, that's what you get. And that's the, whatever. Now, some offices will discount just a little bit here and there, but it's not like what we have here where we have literally offices next door to each other. One's going to take, a Delta Dental of Washington, for example, and take $40 for a pro fee, but the other one is contracted at $80 for a pro fee somehow. And like, there's just this huge disparity of all that. So once we figure out reimbursements, they were saying, hey, everything else is going to be fixed. Is that a possibility, you think?
I think it's part of the solution. I disagree with the statement that everything will be fixed with that. I think that there's a lot more in there and other systemic issues within dentistry that need to be addressed collaboratively, preferably would be really nice to be able to have those conversations openly and find solutions that are both parties saying, hey, this works for both of us. And how do we put our brains together and our heads together? Because we're smart people, right? Dental people.
Well, and another thing too is, has anybody even asked the dental assistants how they feel about it? Has anybody asked them if they even want to do this?
We have.
I've asked a lot of them.
We have.
Yes.
We have in Washington.
And first of all, how did you ask them? And then what was the result?
So interestingly, the current president of the Washington Dental Assistants Association kind of fell into my lap during our last legislative session a year ago when she had seen on social media the preventive assistant bill, and she had seen the work that I had been doing and reached out to me and said, how can I help? I'm not okay with this. And at the time, she wasn't the president. And I said, you guys don't have a voice at the table politically at this point because your association hasn't been overly active, and we need that. So she took that and she found her group of people and she sent in the paperwork to become the president. And they have a treasurer. I think they have a secretary. And so we have been talking, and from her perspective and representing their association, they're not supportive of dental assistants taking on scaling procedures, that she recognizes the education that goes into that, and they want to be valued as dental assistants. This is their career pathway. Not every assistant wants to be a hygienist. Not every hygienist wants to be a dental therapist or a doctor.
Or even a restorative hygienist for that matter, right? Which we all can do in Washington.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, everybody's got a different thing. And so they really want to be recognized as a credible, respected profession in the work that they do. And they want education pathways for themselves.
Yeah.
And then they want the proper education pathway for any type of procedure.
Fair. I mean, I think that's fair. There was a post by, I believe it was Bethany Montoya. You guys know Bethany, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you've met her.
Amazing.
She is incredibly brilliant. And I'm pretty sure it was maybe a month ago. And she had posted this thing about the workforce shortage. And she said, hey, here's graphs. Here are the active hygienists, and here, well, maybe it was licensed. I can't remember. It was active or licensed hygienists versus dentists. And yes, there was this huge divergence, right after COVID for a brief hot minute. But now the last data that she had put on there were more hygienists per capita per dentist, whatever, than at any other time in the last however many years. So tell me why we keep saying that there's a workforce shortage. Where's that coming from?
It is coming from, I think, a perception of a group that cannot retain hygienists. So for them, there's a shortage because they can't retain the ones that they have tried to employ. And what is the reason for that? I think that there is some, I want to say that there's been some research on that, but I don't have it.
There's been several surveys. So in Washington, periodically the UW Center for Workforce Health Studies does a survey, and we did a lot of the work working with them to design questions. And in this survey, we asked retention questions this time to understand that it's not just about where are you working, how many you're working, is where you're working, why are you leaving, and what's making you stay. And we did get some good data out of it, but it's the first time we'd seen that data. And there was another survey done collaboratively with several associations. And really what happened with hygienists, it's workforce culture is the number one issue going on. It's not rate of pay. You can't pay me enough money to go be stressed out in temp. I temped for years, and it's so stressful to me not knowing what you're walking into in an office. I don't care if they pay me $100 an hour. That's not enough money for me to not have a day where I feel like I'm not giving patients what they deserve. And so for me, it's not about the money. That's not what motivates me to do what I do every day. And I think Katrina Sanders actually brought that up in a podcast that she did with Kirk Barrett that I listened to recently. And she talked about practice owners really need to talk to their teams and find out what motivates them and how do you work with them to have their goals for them to be happy at work and feel like they're providing good care.
Yeah, for me, it was always what's going to make the bad days worth it? Because you're going to have a bad day no matter where you work. So what is it about that office that's going to make it okay? Even on those bad days, you're like, okay, but I know this about my office. So it's kind of the same for me. I'd rather make less money and know that I'm supported and valued and that my dentist appreciates and we can co-diagnose together, where really they come in and they're like, what did you find? And I tell them, they're like, yep, I see that, so it just then reinforces what I already told the patient.
I have a sticking point for some of these comments that you guys are making. I'm not really sure how to reconcile it, because I kind of want to blame docs, kind of want to blame hygienists, but I also think it's just kind of a product of our environment. So for example, actually, if you want to chime in, you're more welcome to chime in on this for historical context, but were the hygienists just working in just crappy situations and just not saying anything for decades and decades and decades? Or are they being treated more poorly now than ever, and so they're having to voice their opinion more? Or where, I don't know where the disconnect really is on this, because I'm tired of being labeled the diva for just the basics of just trying to be semi-comfortable at work.
Advocating for the standard of care, which is the bare minimum. I would like to say the BAM.
Yeah.
It's the bare minimum. It's
What's
standard
the
of care.
A stand for?
No, it stands for bare ass minimum.
Okay.
You feel better now I said
I
that.
do actually. Makes a real podcast now.
But it really is. And I think that part of the answer is controversial, that there are hygienists out there who are not performing to standard of care.
Sure.
That you're going in and there are perio charts that are several years old. Why are they not getting done? Because we don't have some help to do it? Then why are
hold
we
on,
continuing with
and
the
that never
prophy?
happened before though? Like this is a brand new problem?
Not a brand new problem. This has been going on for a long time. And so
then why wasn't it a problem 40 years ago, but it's a problem now? You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
if that's the sticking point, if we're for like, okay, well, hygienists were crappy now and that they're ruining the profession for all of us. They should have been ruining it for the profession before.
No, I don't think they're ruining the profession for all of us. I think we're all stakeholders and we all have ownership and responsibility to take and where we are now. So I think you've got a spectrum of providers with everybody, with any job, right? Whether you're in dentistry or you're in healthcare or you work in banking, that you're going to have a spectrum of the amazing and then a little bit in between and a little bit on the other side of that. And that goes for hygienists, that goes for doctors, that goes for assistants as well. So I do think that there were hygienists and continue to be hygienists who are in situations that aren't ideal.
Mhm.
I think I asked that on your Washington State dental hygienist page recently. Like if you're in a
Our
position you don't
page,
like,
you mean? Our group?
our group, that's nice of you to say it that way,
It is.
Andrew.
I'll
But
own it.
it's if you're in a position that you don't like, what's keeping you there? I was trying to ask. I didn't get as much traction on that as I was hoping for, or what's making you change? Like, what is it that's making you choose to go to something else? The world is our oyster right now in dental hygiene, right? There are job opportunities available. Why wouldn't you go check out something else? So why are you staying in a situation that isn't serving you or your patients?
I also kind of feel like with COVID, and I hate to put everything on COVID, but there was we got a lot of keyboard warriors during COVID. And I feel like somehow, I don't know what it was that changed during that time, but I think people have become not afraid to speak how they truly feel. And I think, there was hygienists during that time that just said, you know what? They stayed home and they were like, I don't want to go back. Like, I feel so good not being in that environment anymore. And I spoke when Jasmine Haley had her podcast years ago. I spoke on her podcast when she was talking about toxic work environments because I did work in a toxic work environment. And it was bad to the sense that like I didn't want to leave because I loved my patients. So I stayed for the patients. And then my thought was, well, what if the grass isn't greener on the other side? And so I would tell myself, at least I know the stress to expect every day.
Yeah.
Like I walked in knowing how I was going to be stressed out for the day based on what doctors were working that day. So I knew kind of like how the environment would be. I don't think people are willing to do that anymore. I think we've gotten to a point where it's like, I value my life more. And it took me going on a vacation with my husband, and my husband was ready to come home. And I was like, I'm not ready to go home yet. And then we came home. I immediately went back to work. I came home after one day and he's like, I'm ready to go back on vacation. And I was like, you were the one who was ready to come home. And he goes, but I miss you. And I miss you not being stressed out all the time. And that was a huge eye opener for me. So, needless to say, I quit 2 weeks later because I was not willing to it was obviously having a huge impact on my family. And I was then able to find another office that I loved. But still, the stresses are still there. And I used to come home some days still just frustrated over the day, but there was things that made the bad days worth it. My relationship with my boss was amazing. At the end of the day, I knew I felt supported. I knew that if that wave of, when we went through that recession in like the 2007, 2009 era, if hygienists coming right out of school came in and offered to work for lower, I knew that she wouldn't let me go just so that she could pay somebody less.
Okay, so both great comments. I don't feel like it satisfied my itch that I'm trying to scratch.
Let's scratch it.
I don't know how to still, though. Okay, so let's take your example for a minute. You're in a bad situation. You said, F this, I'm out. Great, that's what you should have done. You found another one, and you're like, you know what? It's really good. It's pretty good. I got to find the things that's going to, make it worth it for me to stay here or whatever. But again, it goes back to, well, where you're at in that at that office, the second office that you mentioned, is that what the hygienists for decades and decades and decades were doing? Or because we're at this like boiling point that we hear it so much more than we've ever heard it ever. And is it just because people are saying it, or is it because it's really truly happening that something is different in dentistry than it's ever been in dentistry?
I
Well,
agree that
Colleen,
things
how do
are
you feel?
different.
I know. I want Colleen to weigh in on
Yeah,
this.
I think things are different in dentistry than they used to be. Expectations of hygienists have changed. We have come to realize the strengths we have and the strengths we bring to the practice, and realize that that has not been recognized over the decades you just worked here. We have many, many more hygienists who work full time because they have to. And so that changes your perception of going to work each day. I got to go.
Oh, that's a good point.
I have to
Yeah.
go every day. And I've been in a position where I started out working 5 days a week. Then I had kids and cut back. And as I neared retirement, I worked 1 day a week. Well, that's perfect. Now, I could handle that. But I think that the practice is different than it used to be. I think that hygienists were respected more by dentists in the past than they are now, or dentists did not know enough about hygiene to worry about it.
No, I think that actually satisfies a lot of my curiosity about it was optional to work, but you had the option to work part-time. You had a little bit more, I don't want to say flexibility, but now it feels like, yeah, hygienists actually do feel like they're, trapped, that they have to work. And not only do they have to work, they have to work a certain number of hours, and that there's no flexibility should anything happen with any other part of their life, whether a car breaks down or, someone gets sick or they get sick, heaven forbid. Like, there's just no flexibility. It's so rigid, the system now, but they need to be at work when maybe our profession wasn't built that way for many, many decades. That actually kind of like,
Well, yeah, and then you
a
have
little
to,
nice.
they want benefits when they're working full time too.
Exactly.
So that
So
could
now
be
the
another
expectations
increase in
higher.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been fascinating. So, okay, so let's talk about the advocacy work, because I really do feel like sometimes advocacy gets thrown around a lot. I kind of actually hate the word, weirdly, because I have a bad taste in my mouth about it, because I feel like all right, listeners, you're just going to probably just Andrew at tail2hygienist.com if you want to send me hate mail. It's like it's an overused word that doesn't always have the results that I'm wanting. Very similar to when they're saying that there's an access to care problem. I feel like it's just like almost a trigger word to make people do things like give money and do these different things. And then in my time, I'm like, nothing ever happened with it. But what you all are doing is different. And I want to talk about, what does advocacy really mean at what level you are doing it? You don't need to compare it to other groups or organizations, but what are you really intending on doing? And then any listener of this podcast, what is your ask for them?
For me, I think advocacy is really about driving change for hopefully the good, right? Depending on where you are on the spectrum, and participating in those things, whether it's, talking with your legislators does make a difference. They need that perspective to understand who hygienists are and what our job truly is. Being tooth scrapers is not acceptable. That's not what we do. And they need to understand that, because they are getting other perspective from varying other dental professionals that maybe isn't really how we feel our job is. So, participating and sending emails and asking for meetings with legislators, they're people. They're just like you and I, and they got into politics or to be legislators for usually a reason, that there was something that they wanted to see change with, and they're doing something about it. So I'm a big get off your duff. Do something. That's advocacy. Like, if you want to make it happen, it's not anyone else's responsibility but yours. So if you want change, get in the arena. Come with us. You know what I mean? Like, we're in there working, trying to
But
figure out how
Can I
to
stop you for a minute?
engage.
But what does that look like, though, to be in the arena? Because, like, look, I don't want to go to a legislative day, or I don't want to do whatever. I don't mind doing that. But what I mean, listener Andrew is saying this thing. So what do you want? Like, how can I still be involved and drive this change that you keep talking about?
Then educate your patients. Educate your family about who hygienists are. Be that hygienist that's operating at standard of care. Do your blood pressure. Do your oral cancer screenings. Palpate for lymph nodes. Look at clinical attachment loss and look at, are you really recognizing signs and symptoms of gingivitis and periodontitis and getting those patients into therapy? Like, do the job that we were designed to do and be that person and educate them about the oral systemic connection. Like, if you aren't willing to, come and talk to your legislator or do that, at best, that is what you can do, is in your everyday, have those conversations and educate and teach our patients what we do, who we are, and the value of a hygienist.
And don't just hang your license on the wall. Hang your degree on the wall. Hang your associate degree. Hang your bachelor's degree. Hang your master's degree. When I hung up my master's degree, so many patients were like, I didn't know hygienists could get a master's degree. And it was like, okay, well, let me tell you. And that opened up so much conversation. And then it is about educating your patients. It's about telling them who we are, what we've done, all the board exams that we've taken to get to where we are, how much those board exams cost, how long those board exams took, how long they took to prepare for, how long our education took to prepare us to do the job that we're doing. I was telling my group recently about a person that I have met recently and really educated her on what the dental hygiene profession is. She didn't even really know. She's a nurse. She didn't even know what really dental hygienists did. And she was in a meeting then just last week, and there was a dentist there. And she called me later. She goes, I just want you to know I channeled my inner Jennifer Frame. And the dentist was saying something about how hygienists should be this and hygienists should be that. And she said, respectfully, dentistry is a different profession than dental hygiene. Dental hygiene is its own profession. And she said, and then he made some comment about, because dentists are the ones that are employing hygienists. And he said, happy wife, happy life. She said, respectfully, you just proved everything that I'm trying to say. And so, before she didn't know anything, again, she didn't know anything about dental hygienists, but then she called me to tell me how happy she was knowing all of that information so that she could stand up for the dental hygiene profession, because as a nurse, she knows how it feels to get backed into a corner and, what they've had to go through. So it does come down to educating people we know, and that when you're a hygienist and you have them in your chair for an hour, you've got some time.
That's some
It's a
captive audience. Yeah. Big time.
I love it. All right. So people listening to this, they are like, hey, we want to support you supporting the profession. Where do they go to learn more about what you all do? How can they support you? What are you looking for?
We do have a website. It's dhaofwa.com. We also have a Facebook group page. It's the Dental Hygiene Advocates of Washington. We're excited to announce that we just launched a campaign here at Under One Roof to retain a lobbyist for our group. So
I got something for that.
Yes. It's one of the most exciting things because that gives us an in on the inside, and having somebody who can advocate for the profession and for the patients and help educate legislators when maybe we aren't available to do that. It is a full-time job to go in and do that. So people can make donations. We have a link on our website. We made a Facebook post last night for people to go in, and I know there's some commotion over there.
All of a sudden, it's getting real loud in here, folks. So we're going to wrap this up. But yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So they can go on, make a donation. What we're really hoping for is that people will make continual donations over time, because lobbyists continue to cost money over time. And the
and
nice
all
thing,
year around.
all year round. And the work is all year round. It isn't just in legislative session. So we're really hoping to get a lobbyist on board within the next month or so. So if people want to go in and donate, there is no better place to put your money right now than in the Dental Hygiene Advocates of Washington.
All these people behind us feel the same way.
They're so
all very
excited for
excited.
us.
Yes.
About the
They're
news,
rooting
yes.
you on. All right. So, listeners, I'm going to put all that information in the show notes. So go support them. There's a bunch of click-through links and things like that. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much for all you for our profession. Thank you for supporting Washington the way it needs to be supported. And that's it. Thanks.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. Though there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.